it's very important to understand that getting employees out of the organization is not a standard activity. Yes, I mean, we do have systems and processes in place which say that I will give you 1 month notice as an organization if I want to exit you. And you as an employee, if you want to exit the organization, you need to give me a 1 month notice or to whatever time period we've decided. But to be able to substantiate this exit from an organization's perspective, to be strongly defended if it ever goes into litigation, an organization should be fairly strong in terms of following certain systems and processes. So let's first discuss about what do we need to do if we need to fire somebody for underperformance. Okay. Now, the first and the foremost thing is that if you need to fire somebody for underperformance, we need to be very clear that this is underperformance. And to be understood as underperformance, they should have been clearly communicated what is performance. So once you've told an employee that this is what performance is, and then you have told the employee that as a result of this performance, I find that you are not performing, so I'm demonstrating you, or I'm giving you examples of underperformance. And then as a third step, an organization should have given the opportunity to the employee to try and cope up, which means I show you that you're underperforming, but now I give you chance 1, chance 2, or chance 3, or opportunity 1, 2, and 3 to try and come up to performance levels. And as a result, you're not, then I'm going to be exiting you from the organization. So as long as you can prove that you are very clear in terms of communicating what is performance, as long as you're going to then measure that performance and show to the employee that this is what I expected and this is what you have done, so I classify you as underperformer. And the third, as long as you can then demonstrate that I have given you as an organization opportunities to move up from the underperformance scale to the performance scale, and as a result of your failure to having been able to move up, I therefore exit you. So that's in the case of an underperformance. What do we do in case we were to exit somebody as a result of misconduct? Now, first is when we talk about misconduct can also be said breach of policies. You would have as an organization certain systems, processes that every individual needs to follow. Now, if an employee doesn't follow those systems and processes, so we would call it as a breach of policy, or we could classify that as a misconduct. And if somebody needs to be exited from the organization as a result of misconduct, then the first and the foremost thing that you need to do is communicate to the employee that I believe as an organization that you have broken this policy, or you have breached this policy, or this is the misconduct that you have done. Okay? So which means the first and the foremost thing is that you need to have those policies, systems, and processes written down and defined or communicated or be aware to the people. We cannot assume that as a general practice people should be aware of certain things. So the communication should have happened. Now, once you have given that information to the employee by whatever name you say, that you have broken this policy, or you have breached this protocol, or you have done this misconduct, then we need to give an opportunity to the employee to defend themselves. The principles of natural justice need to follow, which means an employee is allowed to give reasoning on why this breach happened. And this could be that I did not do this breach at all, or the reason I did this breach was XYZ reason. And once you have captured those reasons, once you have understood those reasons, then you need to take a decision based on the understanding of the reason. But again, the reason explained by the employee and the actual decision taken by the organization have to have some kind of a correlation. And even if they don't have any kind of correlation, the reason for the decision has to be explained clearly. Okay? Why you have taken that decision, and why a correlation was drawn to the decision taken, or why a correlation was not drawn to the reason given by the employee. So as long as that process is followed, you can exit an employee based on misconduct. The third aspect is, what do we do if we have no job? Okay. The terms we use in India are layoff and retrenchment, which is somewhat similar to the rest of the globe. Both of them technically have a different meaning, but for us, for our understanding, let us just talk about that if we don't have any task to be given to an employee, and whether in order to save cost or to save headcount, we want to exit the employee. Well, if that's the situation, then you have certain processes that we need to follow, which would involve a very simple activity of informing the authorities if you are meeting a certain criteria. And even if you're not meeting a certain criteria, you need to pay the money which is due to the employee as a result of their contract with you. And secondly, certain compensation that needs to be given to the employee. Once these things are done, there is a formula in terms of how you calculate this compensation. Once these things are done, a specific reason is attributed that this is what it is, then the employee can be retrenched or can be laid off. The layoff will be a little more complicated because that's not really permanent exit, and that's an exit for a short term only. But retrenchment means a permanent exit of the employee. The fourth is, and which is a very common aspect, a lot of employees would have faced it. A lot of managers would have seen other colleagues demonstrate it, and a lot of people would be aware of this because our research says about 80% of the employees have faced this kind of concept. That basically is exiting somebody on the whims and fancies of the manager or the management. What the whims and fancies mean, that it means that the manager feels that the person is not there, the person is not up to the mark, the person is not really good, or the person is just married, which means the person is going to be going for maternity pretty soon, or all the people in my team are men, and this is the only woman and she's just not gelling well, or all the people in my team are women and this is the only man who just doesn't know how to behave. He misbehaves, he's very rude, very shrewd, he's very unhygienic. So, and these are all the reasons which we've actually heard from managers, and that's the reason we are using these reasons. So you don't have actually a reason of misconduct, you don't have a reason of retrenchment, you don't have a reason of underperformance, but you still need to exit an employee. So how do you handle this situation? Well, if as an organization you are encouraging these kind of exits, then it's not a good thing to be doing. As an organization, as a leader, you should be aware that about 70% of the exits happen as a result of the fourth reason, which is the managers wanting to exit their employees just because they want them to be out. Not because of underperformance, not because of retrenchment, not because of misconduct. Which means the attrition problem that organizations face is actually not an environmental factor or a cultural factor, or maybe it's a cultural factor. It's more a managerial behavioral factor, how managers are behaving and managing their team. So our advice is that don't do this. Do not exit people out of the organization because the manager wants the person to be exited. If a situation does arise that the manager and the employee cannot get along with each other no matter what, then it is always advisable to try and shift them into different teams. And if different teams is also not possible, because people may say that we have only 2 employees in the HR function, how do I put them into different teams? Then you have them reporting to you directly or somebody else directly and not reporting to each other, and creating very clearly defined job descriptions which do not overlap. The solution of exiting both the employees is definitely not the right thing to do. That's a fairly unprofessional behavior of managing and why do we title it an unprofessional behavior? Because whatever you do is going to give a message to the rest of the employees, and those messages to the rest of the employees are what makes an organization culture stronger or weaker. Every action we take makes us strong or weak culturally. And our expectation is if we can avoid the fourth way of exiting employees as an organization, we will only make our organization culture stronger.